Be'ez Hashem, we're going to talk a little bit about the various names of Hashem, the divine names. And we'll begin with the most important name, which is the four-letter name, Yud-Hei and a Vav and a Hey, which is called the Shem HaMefurish, the explicit name, like the Rambam writes in Hilchos Yesod HaTorah. Otherwise, this is known as the Shem HaEtzem, the essence of the name, the essential name. In English, somehow, it's translated as the Tetragrammaton. And this is the name that we call Hashem, the name. This is the way it's been called for many years. It's called the name. When this name is pronounced, it's pronounced as Aleph, Dalet, Nun, Yud, Ado, and Noi. And that's the way it's translated. I mean, in other words, that's the way, there's the Kri and the Ksiv, there's the way it's written and the way it's pronounced. And today, we'll understand a little bit further, we do not pronounce it in its correct form. We'll see if there is a correct pronunciation. We do not correct it in its correct form. But this is the Shmi, there's the actual name itself. And there's the remembrance of the name. And the way we pronounce the name in davening is Aleph, Dalet, Nun, Yud. That's the pronunciation of the name. We'll talk about what that name is in a future shir, future lecture, and why that name is connected to the Yud-Hei and the Vav and the Hey. In the times of the Beis HaMikdash, in the times of the temple, it was the Kohen Gadol used to pronounce this name on Yom Kippur, or while they were duchening, while they were Sama Shemi Bnei Yisrael, that says place the name of Hashem on the people of Israel, which means you pronounce the name of Hashem. And today this name is not pronounced. In fact, the Mishnah already, in the times of the Mishnah says, in the beginning of Chelak, in Sanhedrin, the Mishnah talks about these are the people, Kol Yisrael Yashem Chelak L'Olam Haba, everyone has, every Yisrael, every Yid has a portion in the world to come. These are the ones that do not have a portion in the world to come. And one of the things is that Abba Shaul says that one of them is a Hoiges Hashem Oisius, someone that pronounces the name, or Hegyon means someone that meditates on the name or thinks about the name in their actual letters. And this is in times of exile or outside the Beis HaMikdash, outside the temple, and certainly when it does so in the vernacular, outside the language of Lashon Kodesh. This is the idea that we find already in the times of the Mishnah, that this name was not pronounced, at least not openly. The Gemara also speaks about this in Avodah Zarah. The Gemara speaks about Rachanani ben Tradian, that one of the reasons why he was so quote unquote punished, because he's one of the martyrs, was because he was Hoiges Hashem for Hesia. He spoke about this name, or he meditated on this name in public. This name, we read the Gemara. There's a Gemara in the end of Kiddushin in Daf Ayin Aleph. The Gemara talks about this name, and the Gemara says, Amar Rava Bar Chana Amar Rabbi Yochanan. The Rava says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. That's the first of the Amoraim. It says like this: Shem ben Abba Oisius Chacham Moisen Tlameim Pamachas B'Shavua. That the name of the four-letter name, which is the Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey, the four-letter name of Hashem, teachers, Chachamim, the wise, give over to their students once in every 7 years, twice in every 7 years. So Rav Nachman says, "Mistavik man Amar Pamachas B'Shavua Ksiv Zeh Shmi La'olam La'olam Ksiv." When it says Zeh Shmi La'olam Zeh Zichel Devader, when Moshe Rabbeinu at the burning bush, where he's told the name Eka, which is connected to the Shem Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei, which we'll talk about in the future, what the name Eka means, Aleph Hey Yud-Hei, that it says Zeh Shmi La'olam, this is my name, and the word La'olam, this is my name for eternity. The word La'olam, it doesn't have a vav, which would create the vowel of la'olam for eternity. And since it doesn't have a vowel, it can be read as la'olam, which means to be hidden, to conceal. So therefore that name should be concealed. And the Gemara brings out a story. Rabbi Savran Midrash Pirka. Rabbi wanted to explain this name in public during Yachar Kala, during a time when all the students were gathered. Amalei HaSaba, so the certain Saba told him, La'elam Ksiv, a certain sage told him, a certain elder sage told him, it says La'elam means it should be concealed. That means don't teach this in public. Loika Shenichta V'Nikra, and then the Gemara continues, which is also the Gemara Psachim, that says that I'm not the way I'm written, I am the way I'm written, I'm pronounced. I am written I'm written in Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei, but pronounced Aleph Dalet Nun Yud. The Gemara continues, the Talmud continues, and says like this. Torah Rabbanan, the Brisa says like this. In the beginning, the 12 name of Hashem was given over to everybody, and then it was only given to the Tznuim Shebukuna, only those the humble or the righteous of the priests, and they would recite this name of the 12 name of Hashem with Bavla. They would mumble it under their voices. And Reb Tarfon says, sometimes I followed the brothers of my mother when they were during the priestly blessing, and I heard that the Kohen Gadol pronounced this name quietly, B'Havla. Then the Gemara says that there's also a name of the 42 name of Hashem, which is not given over. Only a person that reaches half of age, 35 years old. A person that reaches after 35 years old means the person is more righteous, etc., etc. And what are these names? What are this 12-letter name of Hashem and the 42 name of Hashem? So Rashi writes actually that Lo Pirsh Lanu. Rashi says we don't have a Messiah, we don't have a tradition what these names are. But B'Pashta is very simply the 42 name of Hashem is probably the name, the Ana B'Koyach. The 12 name of Hashem is the Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei, the 4-letter name of Hashem, either spelled out with 3 letters in each letter, in each word. In each letter, 3 letters in each word, in each letter. So let's say the Yud, Vav, Dalet, etc. Or it refers to Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei, Shem Eka, Shem Aleph, Dalet, Nun Yud, which is Yichud HaShalom, the complete Yichud, like Dari writes. And the 42-letter name of Hashem is either the Ana B'Koyach, or it's like the Ben Yehuda writes that it's maybe, which also comes from Dari, that it's the name of Hashem B'Milui, the Yud-Hei. Either way, it's clear that from these Gemaras, from these teachings, that the name Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei, the name Yud-Hei and the Vav and the Hei, which is the Shema Mufarish, the essence of the name of Hashem, is a name that was certainly from the times of the Talmud forward, from the times of the Gemara forward, was not pronounced. And if it was pronounced, it was only pronounced by very few, and certainly over time it became completely not pronounceable, and it was not pronounced. It's possible that part of the reason why, and saying that it wasn't pronounced, is that it was never a really pronunciation of a word, but it was more like the sound, which is possible. It seems to be what Rabbi Yosef Gatalia writes in Shara Nikud. It's possible that it has to do with more the sound of an inhale and an exhale. So it's the sound of breath. That the Yud and the Vav is both the sound of an inhale, and the Hey, the Ha sound, is the sound of an exhale. That Yud, Hey, and then the Vav, Hey, represents and is in fact the sequence of the Ratzav V'Shoiv, the movement of backwards and forward of an inhale and exhale. And since the name of Hashem is which we'll talk soon, is the essence of existence, so existence fluctuates from the inhale. Everything in this world is inhaling and exhaling, sleeping and becoming awake. Pilip's writes that even the oceans, when they're roaring, it represents the exhale, and when they're flat, it represents sleep, and it represents a more inhale. There's also the kavanah, the intentions of blowing the shofar, which we find in the teachings of the Shalach Kaddish, which is also that the Yud is the point where it touches the shofar, and then the Hey is the blowing out, the sound of the blowing out, which is the exhale. The Hey Nivra Olam, the world is created for the letter Hey. So there's certainly this idea of breath that's connected to the Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey. One of the primary books of Kabbalah, of the Torah Sasai, the teachings of the mystical teachings, is from Yosef Gatalia called Shaira, which is Aschala, which is the beginning of all teachings for a person that wants to enter into the teachings of Pnimis HaTorah, the inner teachings of the Torah. This is the essential text. And in Shaira, the gates of light, in the Akdama, Basically, Gatalia speaks about the names, and the entire book is basically, the entire Sefer is based on the divine names of Hashem, and a person has to know the names of Hashem, and he speaks about the name of Hashem, the Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei, and he speaks about that name as the being the Gufa Ilan. It's the essence of the tree. To quote, that all the names of Hashem that we find in the Torah, because in the Torah we find various names of Hashem, and they all represent different expressions, kaviyachol, of the divine, expressed, of the infinite light expressed through the finer prism of creation. Sometimes we find the light of the divine, of Hashem Kadosh Baruch Hu, being expressed through kindness, so it's Kel, or through Gvura, which is Elakim. Each of the divine names represents another quality. This is why in the Torah, when you read the Torah, you find the different names of Hashem. And some people that don't know how to read correctly will right away think that maybe this is a different type of author, God forbid, or some other idea. And the truth is, the more a person understands, is that these are divine names, that there is one, there's Ein Sof, there's infinite light. The infinite light is expressed through these different prisms, and which is the prism through which we interact with the infinity. And these are the different names. These are the Kalim, these are the vessels through the infinite light is expressed. So the Sharar writes that the essence of all names is the name of Hashem, the Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey, and in Hukidimian Gufa Ilan, and it's like the essence of the tree, the trunk of the tree, and then there's the branches of the tree. So when you look at a tree, you see a trunk, which is the essence of the tree, and then you see the expression of that trunk throughout all the branches. So the branches comes from the trunk, but essentially the trunk is also within the branches, so to speak, which means an expression of the trunk is within the branches. Now you look at each branch, you see a separate branch. You look at the right side of a tree, you see, let's say, one particular branch. You look at the other side, and you can't see the entirety of the tree. It's like looking at an elephant, you see different parts of the elephant through a little prism of a little hole. So sometimes you see the trunk of the elephant, sometimes you see the body of the elephant. So what you're looking at is only a part of something, but in essence it's actually the metaphor is that it's the trunk of the tree that's expressed throughout the branches. That's the name of Hashem. So that's the essence of all creation, the essence of all reality comes from the name of Hashem. The Alter Rebbe speaks about this more clearly and teaches about this more clearly in Torah Parshas Boy. Torah Parshas Boy, the Alter Rebbe writes like this: you should know that the names of Hashem, the various names of Hashem, the reason why we find the various different names of the divine within the Torah, is they represent the 10 spheres of Atzilus. So we're not going to talk about what that means, but they represent the infinite light, the infinite light, the Ein Sof, the infinity, the infinite light of the Creator is expressed through these prisms, through these vessels. The vessels, which is the names of Hashem, are one, are one with the light and one with the vessel. So there, Shein Kel, who begins Kelei Chesed. For example, the name Kel, which we'll talk about in the future, which is another name of Hashem, a prominent name of Hashem that appears in the Torah. That name Kel is connected to, for example, the idea of Chesed. Hashem Elokim, the name Elokim, which is the beginning of the Torah. The Torah speaks about creation, the concealment of the infinite light. Bereshis bara Elokim, the beginning of the creation of Elokim, the midah of din, of judgment, of concealment, of creation, of nature. That's connected to Gvura. And Shem Aleph Dal Nun Yud, Adonai is connected to Malchus, etc. Amnam Shem Avayu Apnimish Kol Hashemas Shalakelim. But you should know that the pnimius, the internal reality of all the names, is actually the name of Hashem. Again, using that image of the trunk, that's the trunk that expressed with all the branches, and the essence of the branches is actually the trunk. So the essence of all the names is the name of Hashem. So there's infinity, there's Ata, which is beyond all names, beyond all expressions. And then infinity expresses itself in the first expression of infinity within any form of vessel, which in comparison to the higher light is considered a vessel, but in comparison to the lower light is considered a light, and the lower is considered the vessel, is expressed within the name of the Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei, the letters of the Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei. The Shem Havai, there's a higher level name of Hashem, which is beyond Oisius, the name of Hashem that's beyond letters. And then there's the Hashem himself, Kaviyachol, the essence of the Creator, which is beyond all names, the Ata. But the first revelation, so to speak, of the infinite light that we can have some type of access to is the expression of infinite light within the vessel, which is considered the light in comparison to the vessels of the other names of Hashem, into the name of Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei, the letters Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei. So Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei, the letter of Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey, which we call the name of Hashem, the Shem of Hashem Atzim. This name is the essence of the expression of the infinite light into creation. And then from that into the various forms within creation and within reality. This name Hashem, incidentally, the Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei, is never personal. This name never appears for this reason, because it's the essence, the closest to the essence of the divine. It never shows up in the Torah as something that's personal. For example, Elokim, the name Elokim, can also be Elokeinu. It could be our God, us. It can be personal. The name Kael, or the name Aleph Daled Nun Yun, these can always become Adonai or Keli. It could be my God. It could be our God. It can always become something that's personal. The Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey, the name of Hashem, is never personal. It's always in an abstract form. Just it is the existence of being. Yet this is also the name that is the name of prophecy, the name of that is revealed in prophecy. It's the name Shmi Hashem. This is the beginning of Moshe that he receives the name of Hashem, not the name of Hashem through the lower names, which is the light that comes in through the lower names of Hashem, which is the way the Avos experience the name of Hashem. But Moshe experienced the name of Hashem as the essence of the expression of Hashem, not through Kael and not through Shem Shakai, etc., which is the way the Avos experience, the patriarchs experience the name of Hashem through the vessels of those other names. Moshe experienced the name of Hashem in its essence, and that's the name of Yetzias Mitzrayim. That's the name of the going out of Egypt. That's the name of Matan Torah, of the receiving of the Torah. That's the name of Nevuah, which means that's the particular name that's connected to Klal Yisrael. So even though it doesn't become personal, it's specific. Elokim could refer to Elokim of the entire world, and Hashem is even though Hashem is Hashem of all creation, but Hashem is the revealing of Hashem, of the infinite light revealed through the name of Hashem, is specific to prophecy, to the giving of the Torah, to Yetzias Mitzrayim, to the going out of Egypt. This is all in our personal journey, the collective personal journey of Klal Yisrael. This is the idea of the name of Hashem in very general. So, one way that we pronounce this name of Hashem in text, and certainly in later Hasidic texts, is that it's called Havaya. So Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei, the way it's pronounced is Shem Havaya, the name of Havaya. What does Havaya mean? Havaya means the exister that brings everything into existence. The Havia, Havia is the existence, and the exister that brings everything, the being. Shemenim Sukalam Mitzoyim, like the Rama writes, the being that brings all beingness into being. So the ultimate being, Amitasi Matzei, Shemenim Sukalam Mitzoyim, the origin of being, which brings all beingness into being. The exister that brings all existence into existence. So that's why the name of Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei, these four letters, Yud, Hey, and Vav and Hey, can spell out the word Haya, that it was, past tense. Hey, Yud, and Hey is past tense. So Haya. There's Yud, Hey, and there's a Vav and Hey. So you take Hey, Yud, and Hey. You have the word Haya, past. You have the word Hoiveh, Hey, Vav, and Hey, which is the present, what it is. So Haya is what it is. Haya means it was. Hoiveh means it is, the present. And you also have Yihiyeh, Yud, Hey, and Yud, and Hey. How do you have a Yud and a Hey and a Yud and a Hey, even though it's Yud-Hei and a Vav and a Hey? Because the Vav eventually is elongated Yud, and by Yomahu Yiyeh Hashem Echad, and those in that time, the prophecy says, the Nevuah says, B'Yomahu Yiyeh, the name Yiyeh, Yud and Hey will be B'Yomahu Yiyeh Hashem Echad, will be the name of Hashem, which means that the Vav which is the elongated Yud, will become Yud-Hei and a Yud-Hei. So in the future tense, it means it will be. In the future, because that represents the time that it will be, the name of Hashem will be not Yud-Hei and expressed as Yud-Hei and a Vav and a Hey, but a Yud and a Hey and a Yud and a Hey. So it's the future. This means that the past, what it's really saying is that the Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei, what is the Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei? The Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei is the name of Hashem, which is transcendent of past, present, and future, and includes all past, present, and future as one. This idea of the Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei, these four letters name of Hashem, expressed as Haya Haya V'Yeh, originates and is first expressed in a revealed way by the Hasidic Ashkenaz, by the pious that lived in Germany, in the Rhine, during the 1100s, 1200s. And it's Rabbi Yehuda Chassid writes it in Pirush Ala Torah, in his commentary on the Torah. In Shmos, he writes it. Also, he writes the same thing in Sefer Gematriyos, in his book on numerical value, and Sefer Manig, Sefer Rekeach. The Rekeach writes it. Was a Talmud of Yehuda Chassid. Also writes this in the Siddur. The Arugas HaBosim brings that in the name of Reb Shmuel, who is the father of Yehuda Chassid. And today we know this very clearly. The Zohar brings us down. The Zohar Kodesh brings us down many times. This is the name Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei. So what it means, what is the Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei? The beingness, the exister that causes all being into being. Therefore, it includes all being, all existence, past, present, and future. It's the timelessness, spacelessness that's expressed, the internal that's expressed within all reality. All past, present, future, the primordial being of all beings. Okay. The Yud, Hey, and the Vav and the Hey, if you read the letters as Hey, Vav, Hey, as for example the word Hoive, which is present, so then you can also read the letters of the Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei as Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey, the Yud that precedes the Hey, Vav, and Hey, which is the Yud Hoive. The Yud, when you put a letter Yud in front of a word, it represents something, it expresses perpetual action, so to speak. It's continuous. Like the Alter Rebbe writes in Shayach L'Emunah, Kacha Ya'asai, or Asai. Asa means he does, or Asai made, and Ya'asa means he's continuously doing. So Yud Hoive would mean the ever unfolding present moment. That's what the Yud-Hei is, which means that the infinite transcendence of the Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei, of the name of Hashem, which is the first expression of an infinite light in some type of vessel, is expressed. Where do we feel the presence of the Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei, of this internal beingness, eternal existingness that brings existence into existence, is precisely in the moment of the present moment. In the actual now is where we're experiencing the Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei. That's why Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei is also connected to, in numeric value, it will be 186, which is connected to Makam, squaring it 10 times 10 is 5, Yud is 10, so 10 times 10, and Hey is 5 times 5, Vav is 6 times 6 is 36, and 5 times 25, 5 times 5 is 25, the total number is 186, which is gematria in the numeric value is the word Makam, which is space. So the ever unfolding infinity, which is beyond time and space, is expressed within the immediacy of the present moment within time and space. Now let's go a little bit into the numeric value to understand a little bit the way we decipher the name Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei from on a numeric level. So every letter in the Hebrew alphabet, in the Hebrew alphabet, has a numeric value. And then there's the spelling of the letter. So let's say the letter Aleph is 1, Beis is 2. But Aleph, when it's spelled, is spelled Aleph Lamed Pei. That's it. When you pronounce the letter Aleph, it's Aleph Lamed Pei. So Aleph is 1, Lamed is 30. Pei is 80, so you have 111. So the letter is spelled out to be 111. Or let's say Beis. Beis is Beis Yud Tav. So then you have 412. So each letter gives birth to other letters. The Aleph is Aleph, and the Beis is Beis Yud Tav, and the Gimel is Gimel Mem Lamed, etc. So each letter is giving birth to other letters. The Beis Haskell writes. So there, and the full numeric value of them is what they are what they represent. So what's interesting is from all the letters of the name of, from all the letters of the 22 letters of the Aleph base, the Chida brings down from Nachasura, also brought down from in the name of Tzemach David, and also from the Kli Yakar, we'll see soon, that the letters Yud, Hey, and Vav, and a Hey have the smallest total numeric value. In other words, if you fill the letter Aleph, Lamed, Pei, you get 111. Beis, Yud, Taf, you get 412, etc. The lowest filling of the letters to get the smallest numeric value is Yud, Hey, and Vav. Yud spelled out, which is always spelled the same way. Yud, Vav, Dalet, which is Yud is 10, Vav is 6, Dalet is 4, so Yud, Vav, Dalet is 20. Hey, depends how you want to spell it. You can spell it Hey Aleph, Hey Yud. It's 3 miluyim, how Hey can be spelled. But either it's going to be 15 with Hey Yud, or Hey Aleph is going to be, or Hey is going to be 10, or Hey Aleph is going to be 6. Vav, the same thing. Vav is spelled Vav with 2 Vavs. You put in an Aleph if you want. It's 12 or 13, but it's a very small numeric value. Versus the other letters, like we said, is 111, is 400. Test is, let's say, is 400, is 419. Every letter is a very large number. The smallest number is the Yud and the Hey and the Vav. These are the 3 letters of the 4 letters of the name of Hashem. So the Kli Yakar and what you said, the Chida brings it down. And he brings it down that the idea, the Kli Yakar writes in Bereshis indicates, we feel like the Lamas Dav Shakadosh Baruch Hu Sheichem Darach V'Shalom. Tzich Hakadosh Baruch Hu Shemispar Mut Yos Mekol Yosis Kishetichtav Stakem Choyis Liv Milom Lintzim Shum Ois Yal Mispar Mut Koyela. That the idea is to express the ideas that Hakadosh Baruch Hu Sheichem V'Shval Ruach. It's Daka Shval Ruach, that it represents divine humility, so to speak. That it rests within the smallest number. So the smallest number, the lowest number, represents humility. That's the simple interpretation, which the Chida and the Kli Yakar bring down from Tzemach David. That the reason why these 4 letters are chosen, 3 of them are different letters. The Yud and Hey and the Vav. There's twice the letter Hey. So the reason why these letters are chosen because these letters have the smallest numeric value, and that represents humility. But let's go a little bit deeper. It's brought down that the higher the name is, the lower the numeric value. Until we reach a point where there is no name at all. Like we said before, the essence of the Creator, so to speak. What the Gra speaks about in Safed Tzniusa, the Rebbe speaks about in the Kutus, Yanush Teres Chassidus, Moedani L'Fanecha, the idea of the essence of the Creator. The Ramak asks a question. It's kind of an interesting question. The Ramak asks, it doesn't phrase it as a question, but he speaks about this idea. He says that the letters of the Torah, Aleph is number 1, is 1, Beis is 2, Gimel is 3, etc. Right? The total number, the highest number is Taf, which is 400. Then you do the Matzapach, you get to 900. That's why the highest number will be 999. The Aleph is 1, and the Taf will be 400. That's in the simple letters. So the question is, the way we assume things, the way we define things, the more the merrier. If something has more, that represents something that's more. If something has more in quantity, that probably has more in quality. So why is it that the letter Aleph is only 1 and the letter Taf is 400? It should be the opposite way. It should be that Aleph should be 400 and it should decrease to Taf should be 400 to be number 1. It should decrease. Or Aleph should be 900 if you do the Matzapach, and then Taf should be 1. In other words, if volume in numbers represents an increase of an idea, of an expression of ideas, so then why is the higher letters of the Aleph base, the Aleph starts with Aleph, like it's brought down B'Shem HaGoyim, or Yud-Hei Goyim brings us down, the Baal Shem Tov teaches this, that Beis is 2 Alephs and Gimel is 3 Alephs. So why is it that, and everything is an expression of Aleph, and Taf will be 400 Alephs. So if Aleph is the highest, then it should have the highest number. And the answer is that it's the opposite. Because numbers and quantity represent something already that is in the world of dimensions and the world of physicality, the world of finitude. When you're talking about infinity, what is closer to infinity, so to speak, the less number. In other words, there's infinity that's beyond number. And the first expression of infinity into the finitude is in the smallest amount of number, so to speak, which would be the letter Aleph. So Aleph is the first revelation that's holding the infinite light, which we'll see soon is also connected to the name of Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei, the name of Hashem. So Aleph is the first expression of the infinite light. So therefore it's expressed within the singularity, within one. And then the Aleph becomes more reduced. The light of infinity becomes more concretized, more concealed, and therefore it shows up as 2. And then it becomes even more concealed. So Taf, which is the 400th, represents the deepest level of concealment. That's why Tav is also a sign, and it represents Ein Har. It's the 400 Kesef. And there's a lot of things where we find that the idea of 400 represents the idea of concealment, of opaqueness, which means that the one is higher because it's closer to infinity. So now we can understand why the Yud-Hei and the Vav, which will be the lowest filling of the letters, which we said before, the lowest numeric value, represents something that's closer to infinity. Again, learning over what we said before. Infinity, the first expression of infinity, which is beyond all form, beyond any type of expression or relationship, the first expression is in the Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei, is in the name of Hashem. That's why Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei is in comparison to the other names of Hashem, that's considered the Ein Sof, that's considered infinite light. So since it's infinity, closest to infinity, it's expressed in the lowest amount of number, in the smallest amount of number. So that's why Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei is chosen. That's why these letters, the Yud and Hey and the Vav, because the Yud and the Hey and the Vav represent the smallest number. This is in the world of gematria. This is the reason, one of the reasons why it's offered. The Kedushas Levi, the Baditchever writes in Shemais also. The Baditchever writes that if you look at the letters of Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei, in the digits from 1 to 10, Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei, Yud, Hey, and a Vav are both in the digits between 1 and 10. They're singular digits. Yud is 10, Hey is 5, and Vav is 6. It says when you multiply the numbers, for example, 1 plus 1, you have 2. 2 times 2, you have 4. 3 times 3, you have 9. 4 times 4, you have 16. So when you multiply 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1 plus 1, and 2 times 2, and 3 times 3, and 4 times 4, you don't have the number itself still appearing. But when you do 5, you get 25. And when you do 6, you get 36. 7 again, you have 49. And 8, you have 64. And 9, you have 81. But then 10, and times 10, you get 100. Which means that it represents, since in the digits between 1 and 10, the only numbers that reappears in its fullness when you multiply it by itself is 5, 6, and 10. Yud and a Hey and a Vav. That represents that that even in the 10 spheres, which means even in where it's expressed, it's always revealed. It always still holds that infinite light, so to speak. So even when it permeates and is reflected in the multiplicity of things, which means when you're multiplying it by itself, you're saying it's 1 times 1, or 2 times 2, or 3 times 3. You're multiplying by itself. It's expressed within the multiplicity of creation. The only letters that still hold their truth, so to speak, and hold their individuality, their number, is 5, 6, and 10. So that represents that it's the timelessness, the transcendence of the Ein Sof that's expressed within Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei, which is expressed in the name of Hashem, which is expressed within creation, still maintaining the infinite. The infinity is in these 4 letters, and these 3 of these 4 letters. Okay, that's another way of understanding it. So up until now, we're talking about the numeric value and what the name what the name, how it's pronounced. There's also a way of understanding it through the world of sound, and also the way to understand it through its graphic design, so to speak, which means how the letters look. The Yud is a dot, the Vav is a line, and the Hey is the expansion of that line into something that's vertical, horizontal, and then on the left side another vav. So we'll understand this in a moment. So it's not just to understand this on a deeper level, but the ideas are also connected to the idea of sound. So a question could be asked, and again, we don't have a way, we don't understand how these letters are pronounced, and we said before that it's possible that it's breath, Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei, but there's also other system, which is, one is from Avraham Abalafi, how the name of Hashem is pronounced. Not that we're supposed to pronounce the name of Hashem, we shouldn't. But the Abalafia created a system using the king vowels, which is from the vowels, the 5 essential vowels, Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei, from those letters that are the vowels that are connected to that word, Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei, that when you take the king vowels and he created an entire system where you're chanting all the names, all the Yud and the Hey and the Vav and the Hey and its various permutations through the various different chants of actually reciting them through the different vowels, and somehow you'll get to the name of Hashem, or you'll unlock the name of Hashem. There's an interesting Masorah, interesting tradition, Mekubal, that's received, that Reb Menachem Tziyoni was a great Rishon, considered a Talmud Ramban, not literally a Talmud Ramban, but in the school of the Ramban. And Reb Menachem Tziyoni writes on this pasuk Zeshmi La'olam that it's Mekubal, there's a tradition like this, that the word Le'olam, which we said before also means La'olam, to hidden, but the way it's pronounced is La'olam. That the word La'olam has 3 vowels. It has a shva, le, that's a shva sound. It has an oi, which is a cholam sound, and it has a komet sound, which is La'olam, lum. So Le'olam, Zeshmi La'olam, which is also in 4 letters, because remember the vav is missing, that's why we can read it as La'elam, to be hidden. So Zeshmi La'olam, the Tzioni brings down that this is a Masorah, that's actually the name of Hashem. That the name of Hashem has these vowels. That it's, the Yud is a Shva, pronounced as Yeh. Again, we should not pronounce it. The Hey is with a Cholam, as in Hay. And the Vav is a Kometz, as in Va. And that would be the pronunciation of the name of Hashem. That's a Mekubal, that's the name of the pronunciation of Hashem. Again, we are not allowed to pronounce it, but he says this is the tradition of what he received, of what the vowels are. Now, Shva, we know later from the Ramak, from the Ari, and he's read from the Kunazar, that the Shva sound is connected to Shva, which is connected to Gvura, literally the sound of holding back, which is the idea of concealment, constriction, the level of Gvura. The Cholam, the Oi sound, again, this is also an Abalafia system. The Oi sound is the sound of Tiferes, of compassion, or even the expression of Oi is an expression of compassion. And the Kometz generally is quite Spichim Ledaber. The idea of Kometz is connected to, like the Ramak writes, great length, is connected to the world of Keser, to close your mouth. But the Reb Menachem Tziyoni actually writes a few pages before that the word that in his Masorah, his tradition, the Kometz is connected to Din V'Rachmim, to judgment and compassion. So Shva is Gevura, which is judgment. Cholam, which is Tiferes, which is compassion. And the Kometz is the Yichud, the unification between Din V'Rachmim, between compassion and judgment. And that's the name of Hashem. So somehow the name of Hashem represents compassion and judgment, and the unification between compassion and judgment. Later, like the Shai Oyer writes, the name of Hashem will be connected to Tiferes, which will be aligned with this idea, which is that it's connected to both, to the alignment of, or the, let's just say it differently, it's, if we talk about breath or life or existence, it's sort of the space, the retention that holds the space between the inhale and the exhale, between the ratzah and the shu, between the coming and going, between the mati v'loy mati. That's the space of the Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei, the holding of the space that allows for existence to be, which is the expression between death and life, between life and death. That's the name of Hashem, that holds that space. Not only is the retention that holds the space between that, but is the space that is the container that holds both life and death, both din and rachim. But let's go a little bit into the to the sound of things. So the Gemara already says about Bas. The Gemara says that this thing Oisis Ba'alma. I think it's possibly the Gemara Bas says there's something the idea that Oisis Ba'alma, words, letters on their own. In Tikkun Zayar, the Tikkun Zayar writes in great length, which speaks a lot about the Oisis, a lot about the Nekudas, and about the vowels, about the letters and the vowels. It speaks about that there's the Oir, there's the Guf, and there's the Ruach, there's the spirit. The letters themselves don't have animation. They're like dead, so to speak. They don't have chayas, they don't have life. What gives life to things? What gives chayas? What gives oir to the letters? That's the nekudas, that's the vowels. So if you see letters on a page in Hebrew without vowels, you don't know how to read them, which means that there's no access and there's no aliveness. These are inanimate letters on a page. There's no aliveness. What gives the aliveness? The person reading it using their pronunciation of the pronunciation of the vowels. So the vowels move the letters. That's why the vowels are always composed, whether through yuds or vavs, through circles or lines, which means they're moving things along. They're circling things. They're creating movement. That's the idea of the vowel. A nekuda gives chayas, gives life. So there's something fascinating about the yud, the hey, and the vav. This idea that the vowels gives chayas is also, the Kuzri has a longer arichas about this, Yud-Hei-Levi has a longer arichas with this, Riasi Katal and Shara Nikud has a longer arichas, a long conversation about this idea, connecting to the name of Hashem, is that the Yud and Hey and the Vav, the Yud, K, and Vav, are letters that also function in the Torah itself, function as vowels. The Torah is not written with vowels, but there are consonantal vowels, which is vowels of letters. So, for example, the yud, when you have the word with the yud with it. So let's say you have a bays. So you have yud, hey, and vav. So let's say you have bays and a yud. So bays and a yud would be b to me, or me, or play b. Bays and a vav would be boy. Bays and a hey would be ba. So the yud and the hey and the vav, they also serve as vowels. The yud creates a chirek, creates an e sound, so like b, or maybe a. The vav is used as a cholam, is used as an oi sound. And the hey is used as almost like is used as a kamet sound, as a sound. So we have in the Torah itself the yud and the hey and the vav are not only letters, they're vowels. Now, Rabbi Avraham Balafia adds the letter Aleph to the Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei because the Aleph is also a vowel, like the letter comments, for letter comments. So what we're saying is that linguistically, the Yud and the Hey and the Vav are the animators because they're the vowels that give life to the Chayis, to the Oisius, that the world is created through the Dvar Hashem, through the creation, through speech, through the Chav Beis Ois Torah, through the letters. But the letters, in order to become alive, need the vowels. The vowels are sort of the chayas, the life force that gives animation to the letters. So the animation of creation, the beingness that gives being to creation, the exister that gives existence to creation, the havia, which giving existence to creation, the ruach, that's the spirit that's enlivening creation, is the Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei. The letters of the Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei is the enlivenedness which gives chayas, which gives life to creation. Let's talk about the Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei in terms of structure, in terms of actually how they look, the geography of the letters. I will now get back to the idea of the vowels being the chayas. So there's the earlier Rishonim. Already, you find this in Reb Shlomo Ibn Gabriel, the great poet, Kesem Malchus, the great poet of Spain. In Mekor Chaim, Shard Beis, in his book called Mekor Chaim, The Source of Life, he brings down this idea, and the Rambam brings down, the Zohar Kodesh brings down, that there is the way creation emerges into being is to Nukuda Kav Shetach. Nukuda is a point, Kav is a line, and Shetach is volume. So the first bridge between absolute unified oneness and singularity, infinity, and creation, finitude, multiplicity, is a Nukuda, is a point. Now we're not talking about a spatial reality, but we're talking about more like a conceptual mathematical idea. It's like there's a point that arises, a small point. That's the letter Yud. Rabbi Sol Sarug later, who was one of the students, not the classical students of the Ari, but one of the other students of the Ari, maybe from a period of time when the Ari was in Mitzrayim, still in Egypt. When he came to Europe, especially in Italy, he talked about that the first emergence of the Avar Kadmon, of the first emergence of the infinite light, is in the letter Yud, because that's the point. It's like, imagine like a tiny little vapor, a tiny little emergence of existence. There's infinity, there's nothingness, emptiness, and then all of a sudden there's through the creation. The Boyer creates this. It's not combustion. It's not simultaneous. It actually is an intentionality. It was created. There's a Yud. A small emergence starts emerging. That's the first Nukud. That's the point. That's why if you look at every single letter in the Aleph base, it begins with the Yud. You start with a point on top, which would be the definition of the Koitzel Yud, which is, according to the Rosh, Amenachas, that's the Koitzel Yud, that's the top. According to Rashi, it's the lower part. According to Tosfos, it's the left part. But according to the Rosh, that's the small part where you put your pen to the paper, that dot, or the quill to the scroll. That immediate dot, that creates the letter Yud. That's the first emergence. So the first emergence is an Akuda. That's the first dimension of reality. Then the Akuda extends one point to the next point, and it creates a kav. It creates a line, a conceptual line. So it's still two dimensionality. But it's expanding. The point is expanding into a kav, and then it's joined by a third, and then it creates a triangular, or a shetach, a surface space, or something even has oimek, something that has depth. So we'll say it's a second dimension, and then a third dimension. A third dimension emerges. So it begins to emerge as a second dimension, as two dimensionality, and then it starts emerging into third dimensionality. So it has orech v'roichev, has length and width, but it also, like in the language of Rashash, also starts to have oimek. Also starts to have three dimensionality. That's the nekuda, kav, then shetach. The point starts off with the small little point, which we'll say that's, let's say, the letter Yud, and then it moves into the kav, and then it moves into the line, and then it moves into the shetach. And it's perpetually expanding. So it's expanding from that space, it's moving forward. This structure of the Nakuda Kav Shetach is actually even reflected in the letter Yud, like we said before, that Rabbi Sol Salug writes that the letter Yud is the first emergence. So the letter Yud itself, when you spell out the letter Yud, Yud is spelled Yud, Vav, and Dalet. So the Yud is an Nakuda, is the point. The Vav is actually the longer letter. It's the Yud that's elongated, like we said before. And then finally you have the Shetach, which is the letter Dalet, which is already two-dimensionality, which has length and width. That's the letter Dalet. So the Nakuda Kav Shetach, these 3 points, is reflected actually in the letter filling of the letter Yud. This is the Rabbi Rashab writes in Samach Vav, and the Rabbi writes in the Mayim Basel Gan Laban Vav, this idea of the expression of the Yud, the Vav, and the Dalet. Now the Yud, the Vav, and the Dalet is, the Dalet is actually a Hey, because what is a Hey? What is the letter Hey? You have Yud, the Vav, so it starts with a point and it's expanded just to oirech, just to length, which is the vav, then expand horizontally and vertically, which is the dalid. But a dalid is a vertical and a vertical and horizontal line to the right, and to the left, what you have is either a vav or a yud. So the vav and the yud, which is either a point or a line, is actually the letter filling of the letter hey. So yud, vav, and hey is nakuda, kav, and shetach. The Ramchal Adam Amorim speaks about a similar idea where he talks about the letters of the name of Hashem, that everything starts with a nitzutz and a rakia. That the nitzutz, the spark, is the letter Yud, and then the rakia is already things start to expand and be expressed, which is the letter Vav. So the Yud and the Vav, the same idea, and then it becomes the Kud, the Kav, then it becomes the Shatach. So in other words, the root of all letters is the Nakuda, is the point. The point that starts to be expanded, and then it becomes both vertically and horizontally, and then expands into its fullness, and then it's in three-dimensionality, and then eventually, through that, it creates and reveals and expressed through the letters of the letters of the creation. Like it says about Betzalel, that the world was created through these letters, and some people know how to manipulate or connect to these letters, or correct sirufim, proper permutations of these letters. So that's the emergence of creation. The emergence of creation, again, the exister of existence is the Yud and the Hey and the Vav. These are the letters of the name Hashem, which is expressed at a conceptual level in the Kudah Kav Shatach, and then becomes the flowering of existence and the multiplicity of creation. We see a very interesting thing, in fact, when people create, which means when a person starts speaking, and speaking is the metaphor of creation, just like Hashem creates the world through speech. We create our reality through language and through speech. That's the definition of a human being, is a medaber, being created with the Creator's light. We have the koach hadibur, we have the power to speech. So you look at a child, the first sound that a child makes, the cooing sound of a child is like the yud. Is one dimensionality, is conceptually like it's that rudimentary sound, that initial small sound is like sound. That's the sound, that's the sound of yud. And then that primitive sound, or when a child grunts or says something, says nu, or something like that. That's an akuda. A more sophisticated sound is when more than one syllable is being vocalized. Let's say where a child points to a chair and says two words. That's the beginning of sounds. Or says points and says, "I want," cannot say that yet, but could point to something and say something. So that's already a kav. Can point to food and say, "I want," and point I and food, or something like that. That's already the cooing sound is becoming two syllables, is becoming like a kav. And of course, shatach is multidimensionality already, where the child can actually say a full sentence. So the expression of creation is through this idea of nekuda, kav, and shatach, the point that becomes elongated and then becomes full in its fullness, which is the yud, the hey, and the vav. Again, the yud, the vav, and the hey in that sequence, which is the nekuda, kav, and shatach, which is the idea of the beingness of creation arising from the yud and the hey and the vav. Abulafia, who speaks about this also in terms of adding the aleph, which is part of the same thing, because aleph is also the beginning of sound. Sound is the beginning of sound. That an interesting thing to notice in terms of the letters of Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei is that if you take the aleph, yud, and the hey and the vav, when they're sounded just in their own sound, not filling out the entire sound, they actually create that other letter. So for example, when you say the letter aleph or sound, so when you're saying you're creating the letter hey. Is aleph and hey. The pronunciation of the letter is an aleph and a hey. When you pronounce and vocalize the letter hey, as in hey, when you're vocalizing, you have the hey and then the hidden yud, the yud that's being revealed. So in the pronunciation of the letter you're revealing the letter hey, and in pronunciation of the letter hey, you're revealing and in pronouncing the letter hey, you're revealing the letter yud. In the vocalization of the letter yud, when you say ya, which I shouldn't say that's the name of Hashem, so this as a word, not as the name of Hashem, when you pronounce that word, that's the yud on its own, what you're pronouncing is you're producing the letter aleph. So ya it would be a yud and an aleph. That's the pronunciation of, or yo, again with an aleph. And then the aleph, the sound, would be again creating the letter Hey. So Aleph creates Hey, Hey creates Yud, and Yud creates Aleph. So Aleph creates the letter Hey. Hey creates the letter Yud. Yud creates the letter Aleph. So then you have the Yud and the and the Vav. So the Aleph creates the Hey creates the Yud. The Yud sound, when you pronounce the letter U, you create the letter Vav. Sorry, I just say this a little differently. And the Vav sound, the Va, is creating the letter Aleph. Again, let's make this clear, because I said this a little incorrect before. The A sound creates the letter Hey. The Hey sound, when you say Hey, you're creating the letter Yud. The Yud sound, Yu sound, you're creating the letter Vav. And the Va sound, you're creating the letter Aleph. So in the pronunciation of each letter, you're creating that letter itself. That's why these are the foundation letters. To sum up everything that we're saying, is that the Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei, the name Yud-Hei-Vav-Hei, these letters of the name of Hashem, is the primary source of all existence. It represents the first reflection of infinity within any type of form, Kaviyachol, Shem Havayil El, which is already in some type of oases and some type of letters. The letters are there because their numeric value is the least, and because they replicate themselves into all, and every time you multiply, they still appear. The structure represents the Nukud Kav and Shatach, the point and the line and the expansion. The pronunciation is that they're vowels which move sound. They're not just letters. They're also consonant vowels, which means that they're also vowels within the letters. And all this represents the chayes, the animating force of existence, the exister that exists within all existence, the animator and the beingness within all being. And that's essentially, in short, something we can think about the name of Hashem. And I wrote a little bit about this in the 32 Gates and sound and vibration.